The first 50 digits of pi calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Jonathan Horniblow.
Previously on 24.1415926535897932384626433838279 5028841971693993751.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording's in the public domain.
Domain public. The in is recording this. Pi of digits 51st, the of end. 0, 1, 5, 7, 3, 9, 9, 3, 9, 6, 1, 7, 9, 1, 4, 8, 8, 2, 0, 5, 9, 7, 2, 3, 8, 3, 3, 4, 6, 2, 6, 4, 8, 3, 2, 3, 9, 7, 9, 8, 5, 3, 5, 6, 2, 9, 5, 1, 4, 1.3. Org.LibriVox for recorded. Hemphill Scott by calculated. Pi of digits 51st the.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Laurie Ann Walden. 3.14159265335846264338327955028841971693993751. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain. The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Laurie Ann Walden. Once upon a time, 3.14159265358979 323 8462643 3832795 0288 41971693 993 7510. The end. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org, recording by DailyBab. 3.1415926382388469393710. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Piratical. 11.11001 101 1001 10 110 101 11 101 1000 1001 111 1001 11 10 11 1000 100 110 10110 10011 11 1000 1110 111 1001 1010 10 1010 0 1000 1001 1001 1111 110 1001 111001 1001 11111 1011 0. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by the Borg. You will record this. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. 3.14159 26535 89793 83279 502 8841 971 69399 End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Jerome Lawson. March 2008.
Hello all you people out there. Mr. Know-It-All here, and today I will be reciting for you the first 50 decimal places of pi. Ahem. 3.14159.26535 8979.323.846 264.338.3279 502.884.1971 693.993.7510.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by James Christopher.
Captain's log. Stardate. 3.1415 9265335 8 979 323 846 264 33 83 279 502 88 41971 69399 375 10. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The 51st digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by J.C. Guan. 派的前50位小数点1,2,3,4,2,4,3,8,9,10完 LibriVox 的录音都是公众所有的。
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by James Christopher.
By your command. 3.14159265384662384738841971693993751069399375110
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain. The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by James Christopher.
3.141592653589793238846 2643383 502-884-1971 69399-37510.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org in Demonic Spanish. Recording by Leon Meyer.
3.14159926535 897932386433383 502-884-1971 693993750.
End of the first 50 digits of pi.
This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by James Christopher. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org, recording by Anna Simon in Dutch. 3.14159265535 8979323846 264338329 502884191 693993750. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org. 3.14159265535 8979 323 846 264 338 3279 502 884 1971 6939993 7510. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Esther. 3.14159 26535 89793 23846 26433 83279 5028 841971 69399 37510. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by James Christopher. Tri, poento, una, cavar, unu, cavin, na, du, ses, cavin, tri, cavin, oak, na, sep, na, tri, du, tri, oak, cavar, ses, du, ses, cavar, tri, oak, tri, du, sep, na, cavin, null, du, oak, cavar, uno, na, sep, uno, ses, na, tri, sep, cavin, unu, null. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Piratical. 3.14159265358979323384626464338 32795028841971 693993751 End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by Cy. 3.141592653384624 End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Mr. M's Grade 1 class, Ontario, Canada. 3.14159265388279328462990. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
Les 50 premières décimales de pi, calculées par Scott Hemphill. Enregistré pour LibriVox.org par J.C. Guan. 3.14159 26535 89793 23846 26433 83279 50288 41971 69399 37 510. Fin des 50 premières décimales de pi. Cet enregistrement fait partie du domaine public.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Jerome Lawson. March 2008. Gandalf, the markings on the ring. What do they mean?
It is the ratio, Frodo, of the ring's circumference to its diameter. 3.14159 26535 8979 323 846 264 338 3279 502 884 1971 693 993 7510.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The 51st digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org, recording by J.C. Guan. 3.14159 26535 89793 23846 26433 83279 50288 41971 69399 37510. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by James Christopher.
Dave. Pi equals 3.1415926533846 264338847 693993751 My mind is going. I can feel it.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Scott Sherris. The first 50 digits of pi in Hebrew. 3.1415926533846 End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi. Calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. 3.243 F6A 888 5A 308 D 31319A 2E 0 3707 344A 409 38 221F. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org, recorded by Anna Simon. 3.14159265358979323 846 264 338 3279 50288 41971 69399 37510. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org, recording by Dalybab in Hungarian. 3.1419265 8973238 264 3279 50288 41971 End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Jerome Lawson. March 2008.
Introducing item number 31415926535, the amazing pi calculation device. With its space-age design, it's the scientifically proven solution to all your circumference calculating needs, now available at an unprecedented value. Also included are item numbers 8979323846 and 26433833279. These handy attachments extend the usefulness of your device and give you extra solving power. But wait, that's not all. Call right now and you'll also receive the number 502-884-1971 and 693-993-7510 fine attachments for those hard-to-reach places. That's right, you get not one, but all 5 pieces for one incredibly low price. Operators are standing by, so call now.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Piratical. Wej.wa los wa va wut cha jav va wej va cho wut sosh wut wej cha wej ko los jav cha vaj, los wej cho wej, ka sosh woot, va pa na chorsh la wa, woot sosh wa, jav woot, wej woot wej sosh va wa pa. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
LibriVox Tower, Great Plains 04 Alpha. These are the first 50 digits of pi calculated by Scott Hemphill. I am 3.14159er 26535 89er 79er 323846 26433833279er 5028841 7169er 39er 37510 miles northeast at 3,000 feet for landing. I have information pi, over.
Great Plains, LibriVox Tower, welcome back. Your excessive precision is not necessary. Just issued information oiler, 27 knot easterly, make left for runway 1828, report entering downwind, over.
Copy that, Tower. This recording is in the public domain, over.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by James Christopher. Tres, pungere, una, quattor, una, quinque, novum, duo, sex, quinque, tres, quinque, octo, novum, septum, novum, tres, duo, tres, octo, quattor, sex, duo, sex, quattor, tres, octo, tres, duo, septum, novum, quinque, nulla, duo, octo, quattor, una, novum, septum, una, sex, novum, tres, novum, tres, septum, quinque, una, nulla. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. 3.1415926 53589 832 End of recording. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Laurie Ann Walden. 3.1415926 535893238 643383278841971693937510510. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Jonathan Horniblow. 3.1415926 3.1415926535889 793238462664 and 33 8327 9502884177937169399375110. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording's in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org. 3.14159265358970. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Sean McGahey. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Jerome Lawson, March 2008.
This March, the most beloved number of our time becomes an extraordinary motion picture event. 3.141592653589793233846 264-338-3279 502-884-1971 693-993-7510. The Movie. Only in theaters March 14th. Rated G.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by James Christopher.
3.1415926535 8979323846 264-3383279 502-884-1971 693-9937510.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Betsy Bush. 3.1415926533847 293971 6939937510. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Sean McGahey. 3.1415926535 8979 323 846 264 338 3279 502 884 1971 693 993 7510. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Cori Samuel. 3.141592653589793328462643388419716939937510. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in a public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Jonathan Horniblow.
3.14159265
35
89
7932384
626433
832795
Oh
28
841
971693
993
75
10.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording's in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by Psy. Ithre ate onwe orfer onwe, aife aine, urte ixe, aife ithre aife, etwe aine, evnse aine ithre urte ithre etwe orfe ixe, urte ixe orfe ithre etwe ithre urte evnse aine, aife irose, urte etwe orfe onwe aine evnse onwe, ixe ainwe ithre aine ithre evnse aife onwe irose. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Psy.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by the dread pirate Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Captain Nobeard. Weigh anchor, ye scurvy dogs. 3.1415 9265 3589 7932 3846 2643 3832 7950 2884 1971 6939 937510 End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain, me hearties.
Les 50 premières décimales de pi, calculées par Scott Hemphill. Enregistré pour LibriVox.org par J.C. Guan. 3.14159 26535 89793 23846 26433 83279 50288 41971 69399 37510. Fin des 50 premières décimales de pi. Cet enregistrement fait partie du domaine public.
The first 50 digits of pi calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Jonathan Horniblow.
3.1415926, yeah, I got the number for meeting chicks.
5358979.
She gave me her number. She was looking fine, said she was
32, 38, 46.
Yeah, I like that size on a big girl's hips. Be they 26, 43 or 38, I'll take any one of them out on a date. 3279 502 88 419 71 and 69. Damn straight. 399375, and then I'd say she was a perfect 10. Yeah.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording's in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. Recording by Piratical. 3.141592653589793238462643383264 3383279502884197169399375110. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Sean McGahey. I, V, I, V, I, X, I, V, I, V, I, V, V, I, X, V, I, X, I, V, IV, VI, VI, IV, III, VII, VII, IX, V, II, VIII, VIII, IV, I, IX, VII, I, VI, IX, III, IX, III, VII, VI. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Jonathan Horniblow.
Hello. I'm popular art critic and cravat wearer Brian Sewell. If we look at this installation, the untrained eye may see merely a circle etched on a barren floor. In fact, what the artist is trying to say with this shape is, in essence,
3.141592653358979323846 26433883790 Do you see now?
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording's in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org, recording by Squidvozhelikova. 3.14115926433884197137510. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Squidvozhelikova. Found at frisco-squid.blogspot.com.
The first 50 digits of pi calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org by Jonathan Horniblow.
Oh, hey there, sweet cheeks. Oh, you can never go out with your hair looking like that, sweetie. Hey, let me give you the number of my stylist. His name's Raoul, and his number is 3.14159-26535 897-9323 846-264-3383-279 502-88-41971-693-993-7510. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, sweetie, but he is so good. Okay, ciao. Mwah.
End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording's in the public domain.
The first 50 digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill. Recorded for LibriVox.org. 3.14 pedwar pump naw dau chwech pump tri pump wyth naw saith naw tri dau tri wyth pedwar chwech dau chwech pedwar tri tri wyth tri dau saith naw pump dim dau wyth pedwar naw saith chwech naw tri naw naw tri saith pump dim. End of the first 50 digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.
The 51st digits of pi, calculated by Scott Hemphill, recorded for LibriVox.org, recording by J.C. Guan, played on the Chinese zither. End of the 51st digits of pi. This recording is in the public domain.